I'm glad that you've joined me today to have a chat here, because I thought we could usefully speak about the issue around mental health and surviving COVID. And obviously, we're in a new lockdown now.
Mhm.
So I thought it'd be really good. I've had some ideas about, what helps people to preserve their mental health during COVID. And I know that's a topic that you know a lot about as well.
Mhm.
So I think we've both got some ideas, haven't we, that we can usefully share?
Definitely. Let's talk. Let's
Let's
chat.
do it. Let's do it. So, if you were going to be providing advice for people on how to look after their mental health during lockdown and COVID, what are some of the kinds of things that you might recommend for people?
So I think I mentioned this last time we had our conversation. Um, something that's key for me is number one would be having a routine in place that you know that you can kind of rely on. That really helps. And then another one that I kind of recommend to everyone to do, especially during lockdown, is to get out in nature as much as possible. So having a daily walk of 45 minutes or an hour in a forest. I think they call it forest bathing, where you really take in the trees. It makes you feel good. It helps with your resilience. And it makes you like notice things that you probably wouldn't notice before, and you're like, wow, that's awesome. And you really can get floored by how incredible nature is. I know I do. I sometimes go on walks and I'm taking pictures because I'm just like, oh, it's so beautiful, the scenery, and it lifts your mood. So you can be feeling really, really stressed. Like I felt really, really stressed on Wednesday with my workload, and just taking an hour out of my day to do that does wonders. It really
Yeah,
does.
I can relate to that. So, one of the things that we've been laughing at ourselves about this week is we've been going out walking, finding all sorts of funny fungus and like being like, wow, I think that we must have collected about 30 pictures of fungus this week and laughing to ourselves, saying, God, is this what our life has come to? That the only thing we can get excited about is fungus.
Oh
But it's
no.
that sense of something being amazing and natural and, that
Mm,
sense of awe about
yeah.
something that really helps, doesn't it?
Yes. And it also, which leads me on to my next point, makes you feel quite present in the moment. So often a lot of the time we're in our heads and we're thinking about what we've got to do in the future, what we've done wrong in the past, and we're not fully here. I think you'll find when you go out in nature, you're very much there, you're very much present, 9 times out of 10, especially if you really make a conscious effort to be. If you look up and if you notice things, it really gets you grounded in the here and now. And that again does wonders for you, for your mental health.
Yeah, one of the things that I have been particularly trying to do as well during lockdown is instead of wolfing down my food, like you, I'm also super busy. Instead of wolfing my food down on the go, I really try to sit down and just like really think about my food when I'm eating it. Just like
Yeah,
look at it and sniff it. And while it's in my mouth, just try and enjoy and savor the flavor of it. It's the same kind of thing, isn't it? Just like
yeah,
being in the moment and taking notice of what you're doing.
exactly. And that's all to do with mindfulness, isn't it? That whole being mindful aspect.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and doing that, sometimes just sitting down, no matter how stressed you feel, how busy you are, and just taking some deep breaths,
Mhm.
because that is a really good grounding thing to do, isn't it? Like a big breath in and then a slow exhale.
Yes, exactly. And I'm very guilty of this, and this is something I need to work on. And I had been doing this, but recently it's gotten a bit too full. But make sure you allow yourself to have space in the day where you can just be still. So, like an hour, 2 hours where you do nothing, where you just stare out the window, where you just play Scrabble on your phone, where you just stroke the dog. It might seem really trivial and like you're wasting time, but actually, it's those moments that actually help you with the rest of your day. So, give yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned like doing something on your phone there, and that leads me in to talk about one of the things that I feel quite strongly about, which is
Mhm.
making sure that you don't spend all day watching the news or that you don't watch the news over and over again. Now, I know from speaking to families, and I know that there's quite a lot of young people that are finding it's really elevating their stress levels and their worries watching the news and hearing about COVID and you know, how many more cases there are, and it's all a little bit doom and gloom in the news, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to limit the amount of times in the day we're watching the news. And actually, I would probably even go as far as to say it's worth, maybe instead of watching the news, to think about, oh, I'm going to go to, like, what, I've got one place that I trust, like maybe the BBC News or something like that. I'm going to go to the BBC News website and I'm going to read what's on that one instead. So I can just read a couple of articles and then switch it off. It's very easy to get drawn in, isn't it, to watching the news all the time?
Exactly. And I noticed, I don't really watch the news per se, but there was my husband was watching it, and there's a certain news channel, I won't say which one it is, but it's, as part of it, it's got all the stats on the screen and all this like red flashing stuff, like danger, danger, fear, fear, and that's going to do no good for your mental health. So try and limit that for sure.
Yeah, and one of the other things that I've been learning a lot about is that it's very detrimental to our mental health to get our news from social media. What they have found in psychological studies is that people who mostly get their news from social media, they have a higher level of behaviors that are linked to, like, poor health outcome behaviors, if that doesn't make sense. What I mean by that is people who get a lot of their news from social media are the ones who are the least likely to wash their hands more frequently, to avoid crowded places, to wear a mask. So all of those things we're being told are going to improve and increase our chances of staying healthy. People who consume their news from social media are the least likely to engage in those behaviors. So that I think is really worrying. And that leads me on to another topic I feel really passionately about, which is actually the use of social media and young people.
Yeah, because we both listened to that podcast, didn't we, and about how the increase of mental health issues and suicide and self-harm correlates with when social media has become more of a thing and smartphones were on the rise, which was 2012, I believe. They've seen that, haven't they, in all the stats?
Yeah, I've got some of those statistics here. So the podcast you're talking about is called Your Undivided Attention. And there's an episode called Are the Kids All Right? Which was all about this episode, was all about this topic, I mean. And what they found, that this is all about relating to children who were born in 1996 and later. And they found this massive spike in hospital admissions and problems with mental health for children within that age group around the year 2012, and it stayed really high. So in the US, the hospitalization for self-harm amongst preteens has increased by 189%. And the increase in suicides in the preteen population in the US has increased by 151%. Absolutely horrifying statistics. And they have been able to connect this, that there's a definite correlation between the rise of social media and preteens and teenagers' use of social media. And in this podcast, which was with two psychologists, Jonathan Haidt and Jean Twenge, they found that the social media platforms are the most addictive. They have the most manipulative and addictive features are TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat. And so on TikTok, there's a button called Discover. So this is one of the examples that was given, that you can go onto this, click Discover, and you find all these hashtags, and you can see how many clicks and likes and engagements there have been with them. So one of them is hashtag Doritos dance. So children are going on, seeing that hashtag Doritos dance has had like 2 billion engagements or views. I mean, we don't even really know what that means. Like, are they real people, and is it just clicks, or, you know, whatever? Because children and young people are seeing that and being encouraged to upload their own little TikTok dance and then write hashtag Doritos dance. And they do that because actually what they want is the social approval of everybody else clicking and liking what they're doing. But actually what's happening is that some of these companies who've started these trends are getting unpaid child labor, free marketing, free advertising. And of course, this is having a really, really detrimental on children's mental health. So
Yeah.
It's a very difficult issue to try to actually deal with, but I think just the fact that we are aware, that we look at them, and that we know what our children are doing, I think that's the important thing, because not all screen use is equally bad. Like you say, some things can be really, you use your screens usefully for
Yeah,
speaking to a friend on the phone, for example.
exactly. Yeah, connecting with people by text message or WhatsApp or what have you. But I think they also found something to do with the amount of time you use your phone, your social media. So I think it was 2 hours was okay, but anything over that is when it starts to become problematic. So, and I can recall working with a young person before who would literally be on their phone all day, like on social media, from the moment they woke up to the moment they went to sleep. And if you think that you're, as a child or a young person, your brain is still developing. So if you're constantly looking at screens and you're constantly flicking the screen, the effect that it has on your brain, well, we don't fully know the answer to that. So it could be potentially quite dangerous.
Well, yeah, and I guess the evidence is in these statistics here that I spoke about just before, that there is some evidence just about what damage it does, and studies are showing as well that this just general passive scrolling through your social media feed has a very detrimental effect on your well-being. But interestingly, spool back a few years and it was all parents saying, oh, how are we going to get our children off their screens? But now increasingly what we're finding is that children are reporting it's actually their parents that are on their screens the whole time. So they might want to sit down and spend time together with their family in the evening, but mum or dad is busy playing Candy Crush all night on their phone. So I think it's something that we just really need to be mindful of.
100%. And children are like sponges, aren't they? So they'll just kind of pick up what their parents are doing. So if they notice their parents constantly being on the phone, they're going to think that's normal behavior. Or if their parents are constantly on the phone, they're not going to get the attention. So they're going to start thinking, oh, well, I'm not that important. So you really got to, like you say, be mindful of how you are with your phone in front of your children. And I think it just reminds me of the whole smoking epidemic. I don't know if that's the word, but smoking was the thing before, wasn't it? Where everyone was addicted to smoking and it was really, really bad for you. And now the what's dangerous for us is the social media. So before it was about the smoking and don't smoke in front of your kids because your kids will pick up on it and then they'll think it's bad and I mean they'll think it's good and they'll have the smoke inhalation and stuff. Now we're looking at it as being social media. So every generation has their thing and this is ours.
Yeah, exactly. And that links nicely into the next point that I wanted to make about, how to promote good mental health during the COVID period. And that is thinking about good times that you've had. One of the things that we talk a lot about in my family and also at Maze is trying to remember that your job as a parent is to make good memories. I really like that. So looking back maybe at photo albums of, places you've been and things you've done, or even actually making that a COVID lockdown project, making a little album about all the good times that you've had together so that you've got something really positive to think about.
Yeah, no, that is a lovely idea. And it is all about memories, isn't it? It's all about making memories. That's what being a parent is, or having a family is all about. It's about memories, for sure. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah. So how about you? What's your what's another recommendation that you have, Michelle, for promoting good mental health during COVID?
So I guess so I mentioned it right at the start about how routine is very important. And I do think routine is good, but at the same time, I think being able to deal with uncertainty is also important because the thing is, we can't predict what's going to happen, especially this year. It's more unpredictable than ever before. But saying that, life itself is unpredictable. So if you can tolerate a certain amount of uncertainty in your life, you're much more able to cope with what's going on. I think those people who are able to are a lot more calm and able to deal with what we're going through. I've shared this mantra many a time, but this is kind of what has helped me throughout my life because I say throughout my life because I've not always been like this, but say for the last, I don't know, 10 years, this is the mantra that's got me through. And it is what it is. not what it could be, not what it should be. It is what it is. And if you just kind of, when something goes a little bit wrong or it doesn't go quite how you expect, if you just say to yourself, it is what it is, it's kind of giving you that kind of power and control to just let it go, because there's nothing you can do about it. It's done now. So it's just like, let that go. That helps me. So I hope it helps you too.
Yeah, definitely. And it's that thing about recognizing that there are just some things that are out of your control, and you can be angry about them or upset about them, but it's not going to change them. And actually what you're doing is you're damaging your own well-being, aren't you, by just allowing yourself to keep wading around and how cross you are or how sad you are or whatever about this situation, because we can't change it.
Exactly. So it'll hurt you, and it will probably hurt other members of your family, because you'll be bringing them down and making them feel bad. So yeah, you need to really be mindful of that.
So it's thinking about good times, isn't it, as well? And just that remembering every day to find something to smile about, to laugh and smile. And I was just reminding you just before about the research that had been done that showed that they'd got people to put like a pen in their mouth like this and then answer a load of questions. And then they found that people who'd got the pen in their mouth like this, because it forces your mouth into a smile, they answer the questions in a much more optimistic way, like in a good mood. They were in a good mood. They felt more optimistic. They answered the questions more optimistically. And then they had another group of people who had to put their pen in their mouth like this. So not in a smile, sort of a little bit more downturned. And those people actually answered the questions like more pessimistically. They were in a lower mood. So it's kind of weird that even putting a pencil in your mouth and forcing your mouth into a smile can actually make you feel happier. I think we should all try that, shouldn't we?
Yeah. And there are such things as, like, is it laughter yoga or laughter therapy, where you actually go to like a little club and you just laugh for 30 minutes to an hour. Some people find that really bizarre, and it does feel a bit weird, but I think it's about practicing that kind of sense of joy and forcing yourself to laugh, because it makes a real difference. I know yesterday I had a proper good belly laugh, and I thought to myself, I haven't done that in a while. I haven't laughed like that. It lifted my mood just doing that. So try and do that. Watch more comedies or rather than horror films, and talk to people who make you feel good. Do more of that, especially in this time.
Yeah, definitely, Michelle. So I think actually we've got 6 really good points out of our conversation here.
Yep.
So
you go through them. So we've got number 1, it's about taking daily nature walks and find things that are awesome and make you go, wow. Being okay with uncertainty, and that's really important. The third one was about social media and trying to not spend too long on it, especially TikTok, Snapchat and Instagram.
Yeah, limit the news. And then also the other one was around decentering, like, just step outside from your worries, take a breath, be in the moment, enjoy every mouthful of your food, and just take your time, slow down a little bit.
Exactly. Very important. Don't rush around.
Yeah. And then the final ones were about remember the good times, reflect back on, how you coped before.
Yeah.
And put a pen in your mouth and smile.
Exactly. So everyone has to try that now. As soon as they come off this call, they need to do that. That's your homework.
Definitely. Oh, well, hopefully there's been some useful nuggets in there for people, Michelle. Thanks, as always, for joining me for a chat. And hopefully we will speak to you again really soon.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Thanks, Sue.